Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Pat Hughes on this edition of Rising. Pat celebrated leftist intellectual Ta-Nehisi Coates was in Chicago this week, and one of the things he said is that Chicago, quote unquote, the invocation of Chicago is a dog whistle. What Chicago means is black people. And people like you use Chicago during the Obama administration to try and delegitimize President Obama. And you're talking about Chicago violence. You're actually trying to make Chicago sound alien to America and suggest that, again, that this is about black people. It's about the others. That's sort of the Ta-Nehisi Coates formulation on that. I thought Chicago was synonymous with a kleptocracy, but and I thought maybe the reason Chicago gets so much ink for violence is because over the last several years we've had more murders than L.A. and New York combined. And I thought that people like Ta-Nehisi Coates, an African-American gentleman himself, would be concerned about the violence on the south and west sides of Chicago that disproportionately results in murder victims who are black. But I was wrong. Yeah,
Dan. Coates is Al Sharpton with a larger vocabulary and better sentence structure. That's all this is, right? This is someone aggrandizing.
The hair is not as good.
Yeah, aggrandizing himself as sort of an intellectual leader on this, and really all his intellectual leadership is calling everybody racist all the time. Right. It's all he does.
The American dream is racist.
Everything's racist.
The other thing about Coates is interesting. Jason Hill, a DePaul philosophy professor, also African-American, Jamaican immigrant. He's written a piece in response to some of what Coates has.
Great piece, by the way. Great piece.
Excellent. We had him on upstream-ideas.com. You should check out that interview there on our Against the Current series. But, Coates doesn't do debates. He only presents in a vacuum. Yeah, so he won't engage the Jason Hills or the Jason Rileys, people, particularly African Americans, who have different political points of view than him. And I always find that suspect, a supposed intellectual that has to operate only where he's on the stage with fellow travelers or he's on the stage by himself, rather than in more of a firing line format doing some of that stuff. And it was interesting to see that Coates seems to me, from what I've read about him and seen about him and the events he's done that I'm aware of, that he's somebody that needs a safe space.
Yes, he does, because his brand currently to the leftists is that he's their intellectual leader on issues of race. That's what he is. That's what he's become. Now, a lot of people in Middle America have absolutely no idea who he is. A lot of people going about their everyday life have no idea. So his impact is not what he thinks his impact is. But the reason why he won't engage is because that's going to ruin his brand. Because the minute he goes up against the Jason Riley, the minute he goes up against someone of substance, white or black, he's gonna not be able to defend himself, because you can only say everybody's racist so many times in a 30-minute debate, Dan. That's all he's saying. He just uses complex sentence structure and big words to say it.
He's kind of like a more polished Cornel West. I think that's kind of what he reminds me of a little bit, just in terms of his.
At least Cornel West is entertaining. Coates is dry and lame, and he's a huge problem in our society, because it perpetuates this myth that white people are evil and terrible and hate black people still after all these years. And it also sort of allows the blame to be put on Trump and Middle America for the failings of the Democrat political machine that has failed Chicagoans, African American and otherwise, decade upon decade, which is why these folks are in the circumstance they're in.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that Coates said while he was in town, he's from Baltimore. He said, I go back to Baltimore often. The problem is that, there, meaning Baltimore, they're still struggling with the same issues they were struggling with in 1985 during the crack epidemic when I was coming up in Baltimore. Oh, are they? They're still struggling with the same issues 30 years later. So who's been in charge of Baltimore for the past 30 years? Who's been in charge of Chicago for the past 100? I mean, to your point about the total lack of accountability that is visited upon the Democrats who control these big cities and have for generations and generations, and the unwillingness of Coates to hold them accountable, whether it's Tiny Dancer or, SRB, former Mayor Blake, or whoever in Baltimore, or even, frankly, going back to Pelosi's old man, who's the mayor of Baltimore. And also in Chicago this week, we had Tiny Dancer introduce a budget, more tax increases because, as he told Greg Hines, I want to make sure every part of the city is participating in the quality of life. And the way you participate in the quality of life in Chicago is you pay more.
Yeah, particularly for the African-American people on the south and west side who cannot afford to pay more, who are getting bludgeoned by Rahm Emanuel's budgets, who have been sentenced to be in schools that can't educate them. If you're looking for a racist Ta-Nehisi Coates, Rahm Emanuel might be a good candidate.
And included in the budget were, just so you know, some specifics. The highest in the nation wireless tax burden is increasing. Chicago household with 4 wireless phones paying $100 per month for wireless voice service will pay $435 a year in taxes and fees. This is according to the Tax Foundation. 36% tax burden on Chicagoans' wireless bills. The 911 fee is going up 15 cents, 15-cent fee increase in ride sharing, so the Ubers and the Lyfts and so forth. An additional 5 cents in 2019, so 15 cents more in 18, another 5 cents in 2019, because that's an easy target. So you got your 3 times a year property tax increases. You got your regressive tax. You got your TIF slush funds. You've got your soon-to-be insolvent police and pension funds. This is the guy who's making the tough decisions to make sure everybody got the highest black unemployment rate in the city. We just talked about the violence. Talk about the schools. This is the guy who's making sure every part of the city is participating in the quality of life.
Somebody needs to step up and run against this guy, Dan, from the center right. This is an opportunity in 2019 to beat him, because it's just like that Preckwinkle soda tax. At some point, it's the final straw, and he, with all of this in the budget, he's approaching final straw category, and someone needs to get out there and run against him because he can be beaten.